Hello there. Springtime in Potenza, where the Church of the Holy Trinity is located, often brings light drizzle. After years of neglect, the church's roof began leaking, causing the interior to become damp and moldy in several places. The maintenance staff decided to address this issue during the year. Thus, repair workers climbed up to the attic to start their work. However, when they arrived, they were met with a horrifying sight. They discovered a body that had been there for years. On Tuesday, March 17, 2010, the repair workers were called in to fix the roof. As they approached, a strong odor of mold and decay filled the air, forcing them to cover their noses. The attic was not only filled with the smell, but also covered in dust due to its infrequent use. While clearing the dust, one of the workers suddenly screamed. In one corner of the attic, they were horrified to find a human skeleton lying on the floor. The repair workers quickly left the church and immediately called the police. When the police arrived, they examined the remains and identified them as those of a woman who had been decomposing for a long time. The victim's jeans were unbuttoned, and her undergarments were torn in the middle. The police speculated that she might have been assaulted. Nearby, they found some hair, a mattress, a pair of glasses, a pair of sandals, and a red button. However, this red button did not belong to the victim's clothes, leading them to believe it might have been left behind by the perpetrator. The police conducted a thorough search of the scene and discovered a hole drilled in the wooden boards beneath the tiles in the attic. They believed this hole might have been made by the perpetrator to ensure ventilation, thus preventing the body from decomposing too quickly and allowing the odor to go unnoticed by others in the church. According to the forensic report, the victim had a total of 13 wounds caused by a sharp object. Her heels were also covered with debris similar to the gravel in the attic, suggesting she may have climbed up there while still alive, only to be murdered later. Although the body was severely decomposed, making it difficult for forensic experts to determine the exact cause of death, they believed she likely died from blood loss due to the sharp object wounds. The forensic team also found blood and saliva on the victim's shirt that did not belong to her, and traces of semen on the mattress, suggesting she may have been assaulted before being killed. This indicated that the attic was the primary crime scene. Since the victim could not be identified by facial recognition, the police decided to enter her DNA into the database, hoping to uncover her identity. To their surprise, they eventually identified her as Alyssa Craps, a girl who had gone missing 17 years ago. Alyssa, born in 1977 in Potenza, Italy, was the daughter of a tobacco merchant and an office worker. The couple had 3 children, with Alyssa being the youngest. Influenced by her family, she became a devout Catholic. She was known for her lively personality, kind heart, and close relationships with her family and friends. Alyssa had always dreamed of becoming a doctor and joining Doctors Without Borders, a non-profit humanitarian organization and one of the world's largest independent medical aid groups, with a mission to provide medical assistance to people worldwide. So how did such a bright and kind-hearted girl become involved in such a tragic crime? The police contacted the person who had reported Alyssa missing, her brother Gildo. When they met, Gildo recounted the events that took place 17 years earlier, in September 1993. At that time, 16-year-old Alyssa went to church with a friend. However, her main purpose for going to church that morning was not to attend Mass, but to meet a male friend. Around 11:30 a.m., when the church service ended and the crowd began to leave, Alyssa stood at the entrance and told her friend that she would be out in about half an hour. No one could have imagined that this would be the last time they saw her. By 1 p.m., when Alyssa was supposed to return home for lunch as promised, she still had not arrived. With no word from her, Gildo began to worry. He first went to the church to search for his sister but couldn't find her anywhere on the premises. He wanted to ask the church staff, but the priest from Serbia happened to be absent. Gildo then contacted some of Alyssa's friends and eventually called the friend who had gone to church with her that morning. The friend admitted that Alyssa had secretly gone to meet a male friend while keeping it hidden from her family, and that she had seen Alyssa enter the church at 11:30 a.m. The person Alyssa went to meet was a man named Danilo, born in 1972 in Sicily, Italy, 5 years older than Alyssa. In 1993, at the age of 21, Danilo was still a student living in Potenza and attending a dental academy 160 kilometers away. According to her friend, Danilo was infatuated with Alyssa and had confessed his feelings to her, but she had rejected him. Afterward, Danilo seemed very upset and couldn't handle the rejection, so he continued to pursue Alyssa. He often called her without saying anything, only playing music from Italian movies about serial killers. This made Alyssa very uncomfortable, so she recorded it in her diary. Alyssa also shared Danilo's strange behavior with her family and friends, but she always tried to handle things on her own. Later, Danilo wanted to meet Alyssa to congratulate her on passing her recent exams. In the end, Alyssa did not refuse and decided to meet him at the church on Sunday, thinking it was a safe place. To be more cautious, Alyssa invited her close female friend to accompany her. Therefore, the last person who might have seen Alyssa before she disappeared was likely Danilo. When Gildo heard the name Danilo, he remembered that his sister had complained to him about Danilo frequently bothering her recently. This made Gildo even more worried. That evening, he called Danilo's family, but Danilo was not home as he had returned to his dental school to deal with some thesis-related matters. After that, Gildo contacted everyone he could think of, but no one knew where Alyssa had gone. Finally, in a state of anxiety, Gildo called the police and reported his sister missing. At this time, Alyssa was only 16 years old, and it was very dangerous for her to be alone outside. After the initial investigation into Alyssa's whereabouts that day, the police located Danilo, who confirmed that he had met Alyssa at the church around 11:30 a.m. that day. The purpose of the meeting was because Danilo had fallen in love with one of Alyssa's female friends, so they discussed how he could pursue her. After a short conversation, Alyssa left the church, while Danilo stayed behind to pray and later in the evening went to the dental school in Naples to handle his thesis work. According to Danilo's statement, before entering the church, Alyssa had complained to him about a man who was bothering her. However, Danilo did not know the man's name. When he spoke to the police, Danilo's story seemed logical and confident. However, after further investigation, the police discovered some inconsistencies in Danilo's account. First, if Danilo met Alyssa at the church around 11:30 a.m. and only spoke with her briefly, it's difficult to explain why no one saw Alyssa on the streets afterward. Furthermore, the police discovered that around 1:45 p.m. that same day, Danilo visited a local hospital to treat an injury on his hand. His clothes were stained with blood, and the doctor suspected that the wounds were not from a fall but resembled cuts from a sharp object. However, Danilo insisted that the injuries were from a fall at a construction site. After gathering these clues, the police summoned Danilo for further questioning, but he steadfastly stuck to his original story. After being treated at the hospital, Danilo claimed that from 11:30 a.m., when he last saw Alyssa, until 1:45 p.m., he had stayed at the church, which was the time Alyssa disappeared. Though Danilo asserted that she had left alone, no one could corroborate his story, making it unreliable. The police then went to the church and attempted to conduct a thorough search of the building. They searched the administrative areas of the church several times, but found no trace of Alyssa. The investigators then wanted to check the upper floors of the church, but the door leading upstairs was locked. Father Serbia, the only person with the key to the upper floors, refused to allow the police to search the attic, citing that he didn't know Danilo and that a police search would desecrate the sanctity of the church. Thus the search ended, and they were unable to gather any further clues. Later, during the investigation, the police discovered a photograph of Danilo in which Father Serbia appeared, indicating that he had lied about not knowing him. However, a single photograph was not enough evidence to charge Serbia. After failing to find Alyssa inside the church, the police thoroughly examined every page of Alyssa's diary, as well as analyzing fingerprints and other impressions left on the following pages due to the pressure of her writing. They found that a page from Alyssa's diary was missing. Through examination of the impressions left on the next page, they discovered that the missing page was written in Albanian. The police then focused on investigating people related to this language, but no results were found. The case gradually came to a standstill. For the next 3 years, the police continued searching but made no progress, and Alyssa remained missing. Although they suspected Danilo, they couldn't prosecute him due to a lack of evidence. Instead, Danilo was only prosecuted for perjury concerning Alyssa's whereabouts on the day she disappeared and was sentenced to 20 months in prison. After his release, he left Italy and moved to Bournemouth, UK, in 2002. However, in November 2002, Danilo was involved in another case when a woman named Heather Barnett, who lived directly across from him, was murdered. The police discovered that Danilo had visited the victim's house 6 days before the crime. Therefore, Danilo once again became the subject of police suspicion. The police began to monitor and investigate him. They discovered that he frequently appeared in the dense forest wearing a hooded coat and waterproof pants, which was highly suspicious. A year and a half after the girl's death, a female student reported to the police that Danilo had secretly cut a lock of her hair and kept it, making her feel uneasy. However, this only demonstrated Danilo's peculiar habits and wasn't concrete evidence. It wasn't until March 17, 2010, when workers repairing a leaky roof accidentally uncovered a secret that had been hidden for 17 years. The police compared the DNA collected from Alyssa's body and the bedsheet with Danilo's DNA, and it all matched. Simultaneously, tracing the red button found at the scene, the police delved into the case files from 17 years ago and conducted a detailed investigation. They discovered that at the time of the incident, the Serbian priest had lost a red button from his regular attire, but since he had passed away 2 years prior, further verification was impossible. In May 2011, 2 months after Alyssa's body was found, the British court reopened the case against Danilo for the charge of murder. Italian investigators testified in court, stating that the DNA collected from Alyssa's clothing matched Danilo's, thereby confirming that Danilo was Alyssa's murderer. After hearing the Italian investigators present evidence and details related to Alyssa's case, the judge found many similarities between the two cases. Along with other evidence and witness testimonies, the court declared Danilo guilty of murdering his neighbor, Heather, and sentenced him to life imprisonment. However, Danilo's lawyer argued that the court had given undue weight to details from Alyssa's case in Italy, which was unfair to the defendant. As a result, Danilo appealed. In November 2012, his appeal was accepted, and his sentence was reduced from life imprisonment to 40 years in prison. On November 8, 2011, Danilo was temporarily extradited to Italy to stand trial for Alyssa's case. At the Salerno court in Italy, with compelling evidence, Danilo was finally convicted of murdering Alyssa and sentenced to 30 years in prison. However, he continued to appeal both verdicts in the UK and Italy. Finally, on October 23, 2014, the Italian Supreme Court upheld Danilo's 30-year prison sentence, while in the UK, he remained sentenced to life imprisonment. Thus, Danilo will be imprisoned for the rest of his life, unable to ever walk free again. Love is an incredibly complex emotion. It can lead one to the blissful heights of happiness or plunge them into the depths of despair. It is often likened to a double-edged sword, capable of bringing satisfaction and fulfillment, yet also causing pain and disappointment. In this case, Danilo, with his twisted mentality, sought revenge on Alyssa after being hurt by his unrequited love for her. Furthermore, we must condemn the Serbian priest. Although he has passed away, preventing further investigation, it is clear that he deliberately covered up Danilo's actions. As a priest, a person meant to bring faith in God to others, he instead caused Alyssa to lose faith in life. And that concludes today's case. What are your thoughts? Please leave your opinions in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye and see you again.